Welcome to a little bit of lab rat fun networking with fish style. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this in one take. So regardless of what I do or say, because I'm behind on another project. So what we're going to do is, I already had a blog out on networking with fish that I put back out in November of 2018. And this is still November of 2018. And that was doing an install and deploy of FMC and FTDv as VMs on a UCS, and also connecting them all up and getting the FMC to add the device for the FTDv. That's where we left this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do IP addresses on the FTDv, and we're also going to enable routing. I did this once. We're now going to go ahead and do it together, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to trip along the way. But you're just going to go ahead and see it, because that's just the way it's going to be today. So what we're going to do is the FTDv is going to have 3 routing neighbors. This is actually a logical diagram that you see in front of you. So we're going to OSPF peer to something that then connects to the real internet. Over subnet 192.18.128.0. We're also going to OSPF neighbor over 10.154.1.0 subnet down to the cat 4948. We're also going to BGP peer over to the cat 9300-3. So obviously the FTDv, which is a virtual FTD, is going to have 3 routing neighbors. Now, if we look at the diagram here, it looks like we have 3 physical interfaces. And also there is a device that obviously the FTDv is going to OSPF peer to. So there is actually a router up there. So there are actually 4 devices that will actually be doing some type of routing neighbor relationship. The one is actually a dcloud router. For those of you who are familiar with dcloud, it's Cisco's demonstration cloud. So I actually have on the other side of that FTDv, red for outside, a dcloud router that I am connecting my physical environment into. That will get me up to the real internet. Will also get me into the dcloud environment for some other Windows boxes, AD, DNS, NTP, and some other devices and services that I'm getting from up there, as well as a connection to the internet. So I need to OSPF up to the dcloud router, and when they gave me my environment, they told me that was my subnet. So that's one device I have to connect to. Another device that I need to connect to is the cat 4948. Now, what you might notice is the fact that when that just popped up, there are 2 physical interfaces that you saw come up. That's actually not a mistake. So while you're seeing the logical diagram of the routing neighbor relationships that will come up, and the path that the data plane will take, sort of, from a layer 3 perspective, not necessarily from a layer 2 perspective, it looks like that cat 4948 has 1 physical connection, but it's actually going to be 2. That's going to be the most complicated part of this entire thing. The putting together of the routing and the IP addresses is like the easy peasy portion. So we have a 4948, 2 environments. That's the physical over down here, and that's the logical over there. So we also have a cat 9300 that has 1 physical, which seems to look like the logical. So here's the deal. So we have the 3 boxes, the dcloud router, the 4948, and the cat 9300 that we want the FTDv to connect to. Now, if we look at the UCS M4 that I have, cool, I have 3 vmNICs. The only issue is that while I have 3 vmNICs on the UCS M4, I'm actually using vmNIC 0 as my out-of-band management interface, so I can actually get into the FMC and to the FTDv through VLAN 1 and out-of-band management on the 4948. So that is that vmNIC eaten up. It's not on this environment. I usually don't write out-of-band management on networking devices when I'm trying to focus on just that. out of band management, just how I get around. So that gives me vmNIC1 and vmNIC3 to actually connect to 3 boxes. What happened to vmNIC2? I need it for something else later. So again, we just have vmNIC1 and vmNIC3. But that's the beauty of virtualization. As long as we keep our stories straight, all virtualization is just a lie. Everyone just has to keep their stories straight. That's the key component of it. Now, to make things simple, you can see that outside, that red outside from the FTDv to the dcloud router up to the real internet. That is actually going outside of the lab environment that I have here. So it's going from my lab environment down and out to a dcloud router over in another building. So actually from that perspective, that's going to be a real physical interface. So I'm going to actually use vmNIC1, and I'm going to connect that to vSwitch1, and vSwitch1 will connect to gigabit 00 on the FTDv. And that will be a physical that goes out. So when we actually configure this one, it's going to be very simple. The dcloud router on the other side is waiting for me to OSPF neighbor with it. So all I have to do is put my address on my side, connect the FTDv to the proper vSwitch that goes to the proper vmNIC, and then out to the dcloud router so that I can ping and also OSPF neighbor. Now, the next more complicated thing is going to be how do we connect vmNIC3 to 2 devices? We're going to trunk it, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a vSwitch2. The vSwitch2 is going to connect to the vmNIC3, and we're going to have it transport 2 different VLANs. Now, if you see here, the subnet that I have between the FTDv and the outside, which goes to the Cat 9300. The Cat 9300, by the way, goes to a mock internet later on, so this is also an outside. That is 10.159.1. Why do I accentuate that? Because it is the FTDv is actually going over to a Cat 9K. So I tend to do things like that in my lab environments. So 159 is actually going from the FTDv to the Cat 9K, and I'm making that VLAN 1509. Just FYI, when I'm actually doing certain things, I tend to use 1500, so I know that it pops, and I use numbers inside of there. Makes it easier for me. I can more easily see that it might be something that I am trying to be tricky with. So, and then 1504 is my connection from the FTDv to the Cat 4K, and then the subnet is 10.154.1. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to now, when I originally did this, I originally got myself confused because virtualization just happens like that. So I was thinking to myself that I needed to do to the FTDv what I would do if the FTD was actually a true physical firepower. Now, with a true physical firepower, what I would do is I would go to the physical interface, and I would actually add sub-interfaces on there. And that, to be honest, is what I originally started doing. So I ripped it all out, and I thought to myself, okay, Fish, you're being stupid. Use the power of the vSwitch, and then go ahead and connect this together and assign gigabit 01 on the virtual FTDv to be with the subnet with the VM network 1504 and 1509. So let's go ahead and just look at some of this real quick. So 1504 and 1509. So then we're going to trunk, but let's just look at this real quick. So if we go back over, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the vSphere, and we're going to see that vmNIC1 is associated with vSwitch1. So we're going to come over here, and we're looking for vmNIC1 is associated with vSwitch 1. Now, vmNIC 0 is actually our management, as I mentioned before. So vmNIC 0 is our out-of-band management. vmNIC 1 is associated with vSwitch 1, just as I had mentioned right here. So vmNIC 1 is associated with vSwitch 1. Now, vSwitch 2 will be associated with vmNIC 3. So if we come over here, what we will see is vSwitch 2, which is right down here. So vSwitch 2 is associated with vmNIC 3. So that's fine. vSwitch 2 is associated with vmNIC 3. And those are the only ones that we're actually using to connect to these three boxes. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go to the virtual switches. Now, vSwitch 0, I mentioned, is our out-of-band. So here we have vmk0. Okay, so that's our out-of-band management. And so vSwitch 1, remember, vSwitch 1 is actually going up to the dcloud router. So vSwitch 1 is VM Network 1500. And from that perspective, I don't actually have that tagged because it's just a point-to-point. Now, what gets confusing, of course, is vSwitch 2. So I have vSwitch 2 here. vSwitch 2, again, should be associated with vmNIC 3, and we should have 2 VM networks on there. So if we come over here, we have vSwitch 2, and we have 2 VM networks on there. We have 1504, which is the inside, which connects to the Cat 4K, and we have 1509. But as you can see, they're both actually on this vSwitch. Okay? So what we actually have is we have a trunk. Now 1504, if we look up there, it's 10.154.1.0. And that's VLAN 1504. Lot easier. That is the almost kind of sort of point-to-point. So physically, the connection is between the FTDv and the 4948, and logically, 10.154 will actually terminate layer 3 on the FTDv, layer 3 over on the 4948. So that one's a lot easier to look at. Okay, so that's this. We're going to go ahead and let 1504 pass through. Then we're going to go ahead and put an SVI on it because as far as the 4948 is concerned, it's on VLAN 154. So that's that one. That's much easier. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have the 4948 not actually be part of the layer 3 for 1509. We're going to actually have that come in 1509, and it's going to pass through the 4948, just kind of sort of piggybacking off of it from a layer 2 perspective and terminate. So the layer 3 endpoints will be over on the FTDv and the 9300. Okay? What I'm going to suggest you do is I'm going to suggest you go ahead and you take a screenshot of this and then print it off, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go play. We ready? Let's go play. So let's do the vmNIC 1 first because that's going to be a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of presentation mode. Okay, so I did a snip there. I didn't like what I said or did. Anyway, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to set this up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over to my display over here and cheat every now and again. What you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go ahead and print that and then follow along. Okay? So let's start with vSwitch 1. Okay, so vSwitch 1 again is the connection, and I'm going to assume that you actually have this, so I'm not going to keep moving this over. I'm going to say that vSwitch 1 is our connection up to the dcloud. So let's go ahead and go in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the FTDv. Now, the interesting thing about virtualization, of course, is that this is your settings from a vSphere VMware perspective, right? having nothing to do with what the guest operating system views as its physical interfaces. So the FTDv inside of the guest operating system for the VM actually views it as gigabit 00, 01, 02. Now, as far as the VMware is going to be concerned, it's just virtual adapter 1, virtual adapter 2, virtual adapter 3, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for the first one, Network Adapter 1, that's my out-of-band management. I know that that's actually not, from the guest OS perspective, where it starts doing the sensing interfaces. That's the management interface. So the sensing interfaces are going to be gigabit 00, 01, and 02. Now, why does Network Adapter 2 have VM Network 1500? I connect to the G Cloud with physical boxes a lot. And in some environments, it actually is a VM. It actually is a VLAN. And so I always use 1500, so I know that that's my connection to the G Cloud router outside of my network. So it's not a VLAN this time, but I always keep that nomenclature. So Network Adapter 2 will translate to gigabit 00. Network Adapter 3 will be 01. That will be inside 1504. That connects to the Cat 4K. Network Adapter 4, 1509 will be my outside. That will connect to the 9K. So they're all connected. They're all ready to go. So let's go ahead and go. Okay, so if we go ahead and we come over here, I've already gone into devices, and 111 is actually my FTDv. And so I said gigabit 00 is going to be the connection up to the D Cloud, and then 01 is going to be my connection to the 4K, which will be on VLAN 1504, and then gigabit 02 will be my connection to the 9K. So let's go ahead and configure these. Okay, let's go ahead and come in here. So first we're going to enable it, and we're going to give it a name. Right, so this is going to be D Cloud router, and I do like to sometimes know that it's on the outside. Now, a lot of times I actually just give it the same name because I'm just playing in this environment. Okay. That's right. These actually cannot have spaces in between them. So let's try that again. And we're going to go ahead and go over to IP4, and I'm going to do 198.18.128.3. And we're going to go ahead and do OK. And as you can see, this also does not like having spaces. So we're going to go ahead and fix that as well. So 198.18.128.3, it says it's overlapping, but the other thing is that I don't even have a subnet on here. This is actually going to be a 18, so let's go ahead and do a OK. So now we have that the first one's going to be dcloud. Now I said enable, so why is it still gray? Why has it not come up? Well, you can see over here, please save the configuration to make the changes available for use, and also you have to do a deploy. Let's just go ahead and do the other ones as well. So I like to do it actually in order, so I actually do know that this is going to be, this is inside to cat 4948, and I'm going to again make this be the same thing because I'm just in my own little environment. No one else has to understand what these are except for me. So I'm in VLAN 154, so VLAN 154 is going to be 10.154.1, and I am the firewall, and my favorite number is 14, so that's what we're going to go with. So I'm going to make the firewall 14 for everything. So 10.154.1.14, and then we're going to go ahead and say OK. And then we're going to do the 1.4, so this is going to be outside to cat 9k-3. I have multiple 9Ks in this environment. Cat 9k3 is going to be my one that's going to go to a mock internet. And we should actually go ahead and just be consistent here. And I'm going to say new, and it's going to be outside to cat 9k _3. And we're going to go ahead and do 10.159.1.14/24. And we're going to do OK. Now at this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to do a save. And then after we save, so I've actually done the IP addresses. So if you look at your diagram for the FTDv, I've actually added the IP addresses that connect to all three different devices. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to deploy. So we're going to click deploy. And what's going to happen is this is going to tell you these are all the different things that you're doing, okay? So you're adding all of these different things, and are you sure you want to do this? And it's like, well, yeah, I really do. So yes, deploy. For me, this is a lot like I do a lot in the past with iOS XR. So to me, this is like a lot like a commit, or I also use Aspirant Test Center a lot. This is like the apply. So these are the changes. Now go push them out. So we've already done it, and we have success. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to refresh this. Okay, so everything looks pretty good. Well, actually, it doesn't. If we look over here, this physical interface, well, this virtual interface, it's not actually green. So let's find out why. Well, okay, I forgot to click enable. So we're going to go ahead and click enable, and then what we're going to do is we're going to save again, and we're going to deploy again. Now, what we should be able to do is we should be able to actually SSH to the FTDv CLI console, and from there go ahead and ping the dcloud and ping the cat 4K, and then by the time we ping those two and do all of this, we'll be able to ping the cat 9K because this will be up. Okay, so let's go do that. So let's open up my profiles, and let's go ahead and SSH over into, oh, wrong password. Okay, so we can do a show running, and when we do a show running, we're actually going to tab it out, and we can actually go up here and we can see our IP addresses up here. So we have, and actually this is already no shut. This one was probably shut down before, just like this one here, because we hadn't enabled it. So these are our IP addresses. .3 was actually because that was the IP address that I was given. So .14 is the FTDv 14. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to, from here, we are going to ping 198.18.1 28.1, and that is my dcloud box. Now we're going to ping the cat 4K, so that is on VLAN 154.1. And then the fourth octet is 4. We should also be able to ping 10.159, which is my connection from the FTDv to the cat 9K with fourth octet 9. And we can ping everything. So now let's go ahead and start up OSPF. So we'll go ahead and move over here and go to routing. So from a routing perspective, I'm already set and up and ready over on the dcloud router. So we'll go ahead and we'll say, okay, we're going to do this dcloud router, and our choices are internal, ABR, ASBR, and all this other kind of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to add. We'll leave the process as a 1, make it area 0. And then I don't really care about all of this. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to call it FTDv 2 dcloud. And then the network is going to be 198.18.1.3. And I'm actually going to do what I like doing over on routers, which is actually say specifically this IP address, but I guess I should actually make it the right IP address. So I'm actually going to say enable OSPF on 198.18.128.3, which is my interface on the FTDv that connects to the OSPF. So we'll go ahead and do a save. And then if I come here and I do dcloud, then I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over. And that's going to bring up my, that's going to say I want to do OSPF. It's kind of sort of like doing an IP OSPF on a interface on a router. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add another. And this is going to be inside to Cat 4K. And again, I'm going to use the exact, so that's 10.154.1. And remember, I'm 14 on this side. And I'm going to say, I want you to do OSPF on this also. And then I go ahead and I look for it, and I actually drag it over. And then from that perspective, I do a OK. Now, I'm not doing any redistribution or inter-area or anything at all. So I have unsaved changes. We're going to go ahead and save that. And then we're going to go ahead and deploy that. And so if we actually expand this, we're going to go ahead and be doing all of this stuff and then deploy. And you can actually do the details here, the device configuration details. And you can do that. So we already have success. Now we'll go check on that later. Let's go ahead and go to BGP. So we're going to go to BGP. Now with BGP, we want to actually enable BGP. And then we're going to use Autonomous System 100. And I'm going to do iBGP between the FTDv and the Cat9K. So they're both going to be in Autonomous System 100. So everything else here I'm perfectly fine with. So this is just default information. So we're going to go ahead and go to the IPv4. I have to enable IPv4. And again, if you want to change some of the defaults, then you do that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do neighbor. And we're going to add, and the IP address to get BGP between the FTDv and the Cat9K is going to be 10.159.1.9 because that is the IP address that the FTD will try to neighbor with over on the Cat9K. Remote autonomous system is 100. Enable this. I'm going to have no access lists or anything right now, so we'll just go ahead and say fine. And then we'll come back up here and do a save. And this time we'll go ahead and when we do the deploy, I'll go ahead and expand this. So this is the different details that we're going to be doing. If I could just see, this is going to be all the different things that we're doing. And this is the new stuff right here. I've got BGP here. And then I also did some stuff down here. So deploy. Truthfully, I don't usually expand, so I'm going to stop expanding. So let's go ahead and go back over to the FTDv, and we're going to do a show OSPF neighbors. And if I could just type, that'd be great. So we actually have 2 neighbors, and they have both been up for just a little while. It's a dead time, actually. So I'm actually going to the Cat 4948 and also the dcloud router. Now, the Cat 4948 is, I haven't put a loop back there yet, so that's why it's coming up with a strange IP address. And if we do a show BGP summary, we have a BGP neighbor. And then that's it. So we can do a show route, and that's it, right? So the hardest thing was just keeping track of the virtualization. That vSwitch.to had 1504 and 1509. We're doing that pass-through because I didn't have 3 available physical interfaces. But configuring the IP address from the FMC over to the FTDv, easy peasy. Configuring the OSPF, configuring the BGP, and that's it. And you're up and running. Hope you had a lot of fun playing the lab networking with Fishstyle, and I'm out. Have a good one.